having watched some pretty whacked out crap as a kid in the 80s. But if this is what kids in the 70s had, you win! I don't know if I've heard of anything more ridiculous than Electra Woman and Dyna Girl!
Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, fighting all evil deeds.
Just hearing the title makes you think you're watching a bad parody of a TV show. And guess what? You'd be right. This was basically created as a parody for superhero shows, particularly the 1960s Batman. Why would you lampoon a show that was already clearly being made tongue-in-cheek?
Electra tricky.
Electra Woman and Dyna Girl aired on ABC in 1976 and was created by our old friends Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. Right before they started up their own animation company, they designed this as part of the Croft Super Show. Yeah, that's Croft as in Sid and Marty Croft, who gave us the wonderful insanity of H.R. Pufnstuf and Land of the Lost. Can this show give us villains better or lamer than Witchy Poo? Only one way to find out! Of course, what would any bad superhero show be without an incredibly cheesy opening number that gets stuck in your head forever?
Glory and Judy dare to face any criminal everywhere. Electra Woman and Dyna Girl.
So our heroes Electra Woman and Dyna Girl are played by Deirdre Hall and Judy Strangis. They're much like the female Batman and Robin in that they have no natural superpowers, only here they get their powers from ginormous computer wristwatches that dress them up in spandex and shoot out electromagnetic beams or something.
Electra Wild Frank.
I'm just wondering how they keep those things in place, since in the real world, they should slide down and dangle from the bottom ends of their arms and possibly tear all the tendons in their wrists, unless the insides are mostly empty space. I mean, I know computer technology starts out in really bulky form, but come on, James Bond and Dick Tracy had more compact utensils years before this came out. And if the Electrocoms had to be that bulky, wouldn't making them into belt buckles make more sense? I guess this would be the guy we would ask that to. This is Frank Heflin, who built the computer Electrocomp and uses it to be a B-grade level of James Bond's Q in designing all of the gadgets installed on their transmitters called Electrocoms.
Here it is. It's called the electrostrobe.
You see, with electrostrobe, you move, you react, you even think 10,000 times faster. Watch the electrobeam. Stop it.
Electra Super.
This should come in handy in the event you have to search a place in a hurry.
Talk about getting the inside scoop.
I'd like to say that my phone now has more gadgets than those things do. But it doesn't. And how did Heflin design the computers and the comms? How did these two first meet him and become Electra Woman and Dyna Girl? Do you really think they ever really told us these things? We don't even get their full real names. Only Laurie and Judy, who write for the magazine Newsmaker. Yes, even in the 70s they made bad parodies of media to avoid infringement, while living in a house whose interior decorator was likely flipping whoppers by the 80s.
Do you think we'll ever see Colorado Johnson?
Judy, I've got a feeling we're going to have our chance.
Okay, I will say this costume transformation sequence is a bit more believable than Bats and Robin somehow getting in uniform in mid-pole slide.
Electra, right, let's go.
And they're a lot more efficient in their transportation. I mean, screw Bruce always having to switch between the Batmobile and the Batplane. Their vehicle is a car and a jet all in one.
Electra plane speeds our heroines toward the storehouse for America's gold.
Fort Knox.
However, I do wonder if these special effects designers now cry at the fact that their kids can pull off the exact same moves on their laptops.
I'm activating Electra scan. Hey, Electra, we're picking up something.
Ready?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure where to go on with this series. Let's start with the sets. We're not talking cheap. We're talking tattooed teenage alien fighters cheap. Maybe I'm spoiled by 21st century production values, but it's pretty bad when I keep having to tell myself, yes, this was on mainstream TV and not just a present-day internet show that someone put together in his bedroom. I'll bet in the last week you guys watched something online that looked as high quality as this, right? And the zero budget goes way past the sets themselves. I don't think I saw more than 6 people total in any one episode of this series. Now, maybe that was pretty common for a Croft production. It's been a while since I watched Land of the Lost, so I don't remember how many Sleestack were in one episode at a time, but it's still pretty sad when Sesame Street has a larger cast. Anyway, about those episodes, there were either 16 or just 8 of them, depending on how you look at it. See, like the Batman series, each adventure was divided into 2 parts. But here, each one lasted a half hour and was broken up into 2 15-minute segments, with one segment shown each week as part of the Super Show. I hate to keep bringing up the internet thing, but it really shows you just how far we've come when Linkara and Spoonie can regularly make weekly videos that exceed 20 minutes in length. But at least an Electra Woman episode was still longer than a TNA Impact match. The editing is also really shoddy, particularly with the cuts. It seems like every time we cut from one shot to the next, there's at least a second before the character speaks, usually in direct response to what someone else said.
Electra Woman, Dyna Girl. It's urgent you return to Electra Base immediately.
But the sorcerer's on his way to Fort Knox.
I've completed work on the Electra beam. It could come in handy.
All right.
Again, each episode was 15 minutes long, but if they'd cut out unnecessary dead spots, they might not have even lasted 10 minutes each. Not that the dialogue itself is exactly high-quality drama anyway. I can't really blame the writing. It actually sounds a lot like what Batman and Robin would say. But too often, it seems like the characters are trying to be as hammy as Adam West or Burt Ward, but they just don't pull it off very often.
Hit him again! Harder!
The shield's still holding. But for how long? More power, Frank! Pour it on!
Come on, Crime Scope. More power. More!
Although I'm guessing a lot of the viewers weren't paying much attention to the dialogue anyway, they were too busy ogling. I mean, damn! Clearly the 70s were a much more naive time where teenage boys and young adults clearly had fantasies about cougars and young, innocent-looking girls, but must not have made it as well known yet, so said fantasies could be fulfilled on live-action TV. I mean, given the video quality and how they made up these two to look, I can't be the only one who thinks this could have been taken from a porno spoof with the hardcore cut out. Come on, they put both of them in skin-tight outfits, and they gave Electra Woman Farrah Fawcett hair, since every teen boy had that poster in their room. But what could they do for Dyna Girl? Let's take a woman clearly in her 20s, put her in pigtails, and have her act as teen girly as possible. Wow, Ruby and Spears, you are dirty old men, aren't you?
Electra Woman's incredible speed made everything else look slow.
Precisely.
Electra, wow! Oh!
Brace yourself.
Electra, terrific! We made it!
Try aiming your beam up towards the projection booth. Maybe we can make this thing self-destruct.
woman.
Now, the one thing this show clearly has over the live-action tick is that each adventure has Electra and Dyna actually fighting supervillains. The problem here is that a lot of these villains' plans are kind of a little bit dumb. Yeah, that's usually par for the course when it comes to villains of this time period. But let's take a look at the first episode and see how the Sorcerer plans to steal all the gold in Fort Knox.
The ultimate mirror trick. Watch.
According to Crime Scope, the gold is still here. It was all done with mirrors.
Electra tricky.
All together now, what was the point? His whole plan revolved around just making everyone think the gold was stolen using an optical illusion? Was he expecting every single person to clear out of the compound in search of the gold and give him enough time to back a truck into the place so he could then carry it all out and expect no one to notice him doing that? Not to mention that he didn't even succeed in making all of the gold disappear, since we clearly saw the gold bars behind Electra and Dyna still perfectly visible.
Now you see them. And now you don't.
And he's one of the normal villains. You want to see more? Brace yourselves. What you are about to see may cause blindness, uncontrollable laughter, and the short-circuiting of several brain cells all at once. You have been warned.
This is going to be the gig of all gigs. My new #1 single.
Take over the world.
I'll just give them one of my fantastic private concerts.
This is all I have to say about that. Not only have Sid and Marty Krofft steadfastly denied that any of their productions were made on drugs, it has been stated that they actually did fire at least one crew member of HR Pufnstuf for showing up on the set stoned. Yeah, that thing was supposedly created during complete sobriety.
What are you?
You'll find no hidden projector. And I'm certain you don't believe in ghosts.
Then who are you?
Suffice it to say that I am the Empress of Evil.
Wow, do you realize the treasure we've uncovered? We may have just found Lady Gaga's inspiration.
I'm looking forward to being queen of the world. You'll have to have pretty good eyesight to see that far into the future, Cleopatra.
That's right. We figure your future's at 20 years to life of hard labor.
And believe it or not, despite the Krofft Super Show sticking around for another year or two, this installment was not picked up for a second season.
You girls stopped the Pharaoh once again. Won't he ever learn?
Well, thanks to your Electra vision.
I think he finally saw the light.
I don't get it.
Really?
This just might be the most perfect bad live-action show ever made. I know I might be stealing a line from Bennett the Sage in that case, but it just fits here. The production is so laughably cheap, the dialogue is so ridiculously stilted, and the stories are so amazingly stupid that it all comes together in something so gloriously bad that you can't turn away from it. It's cheesier than a Velveeta factory, it's dumber than my entire list of stupidest characters, and it almost certainly jump-started a few million boys into puberty. It was released on VHS sometime in the 80s, and Nick at Night's TV Land picked it up with several other Croft shows in 2009. There was a failed attempt to revive it with a new series in 2001, with, of all people, Marky Post as Electra Woman, because for some reason, Deirdre Hall doesn't look back too fondly on this series. Apparently, she's more proud of doing over-the-top soap drama on Days of Our Lives than a campy kids show. What the frack?!
Your turn!
You wouldn't hit a lady, would you?
Sucker!
No! No!
You weren't after anything in the plaza. It was just a trick to find our lair.
I never thought I'd get this opportunity, but a few weeks ago I picked up a huge energy signal that was traced to your show.
My transmission to the cartoon hero. I should have feared it could have been intercepted.
Unfortunately, the show went off before my pathetic lackeys could trace its exact spot. So, I set up shop in town and waited for the right time to lure you into a false battle so I could put a magic trace on you and take you down in your own hideout.
And now you're gonna kill me with your harpy voice and exposition?
As much as it would please me to fry you where you lie, it would be so much more poetic to have you destroyed by your own servant! You have possessed this ultimate power for too long and wasted it! What have you used it for? To bring life to a bunch of stuffed cat balls? And all the while living in this ransack hole griping about TV shows on the internet! I'm doing you a favor with this. Genie, come out of the bottle! Destroy this pathetic worm!
Bow! Bow! Melisha, you really are a fool. Did you really think that I would let this kind of power fall into anyone else's hands? For that matter, did you actually think that I'm such an ass that I would take this amazing magical creature and force her to serve me as my slave? I wished for her freedom years ago. Jeannie is my friend, who is there for me out of the goodness of her own heart, and having her help in my fight against bad TV and evildoers is worth more to me than the riches of the world. Speaking of which, Jeannie, would you be so kind as to take out the trash? Bing! Boom! So what'd you send her to?
Some faraway, desolate place devoid of life or civilization.
So New Jersey. Yeah, Oklahoma's not far enough.